That game instantly moved into all-time top 5 wins under Unai Emery for me. I can't precisely put my finger on why. I'll try to debate that and the key issues and moments over the next several minutes. And presented by the positively giddy 24/7 services, let's relish Brighton 3, Villa 4. Hello from the parlor. And isn't football weird? I mean, why do we have Brighton's number the same way Crystal Palace has ours? Why does Ollie Watkins have such a great scoring record against the Seagulls? It makes no sense. But in the quest for Champions League football at the end of this season, these two teams met at a pivotal point and Villa pulled off a monumental result, moving us to 3rd, them down to 7th, with 5 points in between. This game bucked a lot of trends. Like, for example, Brighton had scored 79% of their goals in the second half. Well, they get 2 in the first. They were also the league leaders in points earned from losing positions. That honor now falls to Aston Villa and Sunderland, both earning 12. Villa had to come from 2 down. Coming into Wednesday's game, the Seagulls had not conceded a goal from open play in over 4 hours. That ended after 37 minutes, and coming into this game, Villa scored 9 goals from outside the penalty area. In this one, they had 4 from inside. Samir made the 5-hour journey south and spent most of that time sending voice memos, which were also 5 hours. Never met a lad who loved a voice memo as much as Samir. XG has been a hot topic for Villa. When you score 3 goals right in the goal mouth, and 1 more from just inside the box, your XG shoots up. How about 10 shots on target from 14 attempts, creating 6 big chances, missing only 2. All that Villa needed to boost their numbers was a trip to the seaside. The bonus stats were duels won and ground duels won, which were pretty much dead even through 90, but heavily favored the home side through 45 minutes. But there is no stat for resilience or determination, but if there were stats for those, Villa would have dominated. I think this was a bigger moment in the match than it was made out to be at the time because of the chain reaction that occurred afterwards. And you hear the expression ankle-breaking move? Well, Pau Torres almost literally broke the ankles of young striker Stefano Simos, who was very energetic and effective in this game. And 24 minutes in, Fabian Hürzeler has to make an unplanned and unwanted sub, with Danny Welbeck's load management being carefully considered. Ironically, the man to come on was Jack Hinchelwood, who would be heavily involved in this game at both ends, first breaking away and then very unselfishly trying to square the ball across. Pau Torres didn't get enough to block it, but just enough to score the OG. At that point, my instant reaction was, this is over. Then I realized, no, wait! This is Brighton! Big issue number 3, Makeshift Marco. For the 4th time since Unai Emery joined us, Emi Martinez has been named to the starting 11, only to then be withdrawn because of some kind of warm-up related injury. First happened 2 years ago at Manchester City, last year in the spring at Brentford, and earlier this year at Feyenoord. And I stand by my claim firmly that the one at Brentford caused significant strain between club and goalkeeper. The ploy, and I'm calling it a ploy, seems to work because Villa won 3 out of 4 of those games, all away from home and in the middle of a congested schedule. Villa also won 3 and drew 1 in the game right after, all featuring Emi Martinez. And if you're the opponent and you see that Emi Martinez has been withdrawn at the last minute, you're probably thinking, that's an advantage to us. Even the way Unai Emery tried to characterize the injury to Martinez afterwards felt a little bit fishy and rehearsed to me. And when the same player in the same position over the course of a couple of seasons pulls the chute 4 times, that's now a trend, and it's one that I don't think the Premier League would be particularly fond of. So why go through that song and dance? Why not just name Marco Bizot to the starting 11 and rotate your goalkeepers? Well, for one thing, could there be a perception by the opponent that you're either looking past them or not respecting them, or perhaps not taking the game as seriously because it's in the middle of a busy stretch. The late change doesn't really give the opponent a chance to study or come up with some kind of a book on the backup goalkeeper, especially in terms of tendencies with the ball at his feet, because Brighton's a high-octane team that doesn't mind pressing, and the goalkeeper is key in Villa's build-up. And by the way, Villa is such a strategic club now. They will look to seek any advantage that is available. And I'm going to make a not-so-bold prediction here. Martinez starts against his old club on Saturday. Not a ploy was the 1-0 goal, which would have been a nightmare for Bizot because he totally flaps at it. And by the way, we are now -5 in the first 15-minute increments of games. That's how many goals we've conceded early, even though there was evidence that it wasn't even a corner in the first place, which is why IFAB is actually talking about VAR for corners. I digress. I'm not ready to call Marco Bizot a vampire goalkeeper, you know, the kind that hates crosses, but it certainly is not his best attribute. Bizot's acrobatics and heroics would come into play in second half stoppage time from a glancing Danny Welbeck header after one of those horrible diagonal pelters into the box, and although it's at a good height, his cat-like reflexes take over. Imagine if that goes in, how we're feeling today. And what a human being this is, who has gladly accepted his role as a number 2. We got him for nothing. And in his 5 games, it's one or the other. He either gets a clean sheet or concedes 3 goals. There's a bit of a trend occurring in this country as our parents get older. I'm not sure if it's the same in the UK, but they're moving into their kids' homes, which requires some kind of retrofitting of a suite or a space. And this is something that 24/7 Services has done in the past, and they would love to do for you now. And a fine viewer of this show, Edward Davis, hired 24/7 Services for this precise project under very heartbreaking circumstances, which included an unscrupulous contractor walking away with a lot of money and not a great job being done. Well, 24/7 Services came in there and fixed it all up, and you have to factor things like kitchen counter heights or shower bars, toilet access, all those things they understand, and they put their name and their word and their reputation behind it. If you're thinking about moving your parents into your home and you have a space that needs to be updated, talk to 24/7 Services and bring your whole family together. Big issue number 2, awoken Watkins. Oliver George Arthur Watkins has played Brighton and Hove Albion 10 times in his career. He has 9 goals. That is utterly outrageous. And I wondered in the last show if Unai Emery, who's so analytical, would even consider a player's personal history against one club as a factor in him playing, because it's kind of superstitious, bordering on supernatural. And it didn't start great for Watkins. He played a lot of mishit or underhit passes, and then he had the chance where Rodgers puts him through, but he just didn't seem to be able to generate the power to properly test for Bruggen, and I could hear the moaning and groaning and complaints all the way here in Canada. And then everything changed. Pau Torres looked like he was hell-bent on atoning for his OG when he made an assertive foray into Brighton territory in and around minute number 37 before playing in Ian Matson, who then skinned Vifer before he puts it into a terrible area for defenders and goalkeeper. And then Oliver Watkins, with his Brighton muscle memory, wanted it that much more than even his teammate, Yvan Gaisson. And that's the kind of scrappy, ugly, untidy goal that turns your fortunes around along with that of your team. 15 minutes later, with 6 minutes of stoppage time added, Villa players are lobbying Andy Madley hard to take a closer look at this handball incident following a corner. It looked pretty cut and dried to me, and maybe VAR was checking, which is why the allotted 6 minutes was extended long enough to score what was maybe one of the most important goals of the season so far. Morgan Rodgers alertly and effortlessly plays the inch-perfectly weighted ball over the top, and the Rodgers-Watkins collab was reinvigorated. How many times have we seen it over the past couple of seasons? He would also play a very subtle but important role in the next goal. So although Rodgers did not score, that pass right there was another game-breaking moment from him. Skipping record Pete here, skipping record Pete here, skipping record Pete here. How many times have I talked about the goals scored late in a half, changing games? This one came very late and was beautifully taken. Vintage Watkins, first timing the run perfectly after clocking Morgan Rogers about to play the ball over the top, then fending off three guys chasing him before getting over top of it and planting it straight in the corner. This was the haymaker to the jaw that left everybody in blue and the entire stadium flat out on the mat dazed, with little birdies flying overhead. Unai Emery, who publicly proclaimed that Ollie Watkins' goals were coming during his Tuesday media briefing, threw his jacket into the air. It was symbolic, almost like him tearing up his halftime team talk just after he tore into Yvan Gaisson. I think it was because he wasn't happy with the recovery intensity that the Ivorian was showing without the ball. At that point, I could feel it in my core. You probably did too. Villa was coming all the way back, and 15 minutes into that second half from a corner, Amadou Onana, who justifiably started and went the distance, he was excellent, rose the highest at the back post. That big frame comes in handy. Morgan Rogers providing a very subtle, bordering on obstruction pick on the goalkeeper, preventing him from getting to the back post faster. All of a sudden, the momentum swung entirely in Villa's favor. The traveling support drowned out everybody else in the stadium. It was utter limbs. And now my intuition was telling me there are more goals coming, because Brighton will be not only shocked and embarrassed, but they now have to chase the game hard in order to try to get something, which is the perfect recipe for the dawn. Daniel Malen stepped onto the Amex pitch at 76 minutes and 50 seconds, and exactly 30 seconds later, and with his first touch, scores the game-winning goal, another one for the Dawn. And look at Ollie Watkins with the contributions here. Not an assist, the header across, and poor Yvan Gaisson, it's like he was robbed of two chances to score his first Premier League goal. Now, if I've interpreted this correctly, Watkins would have been offside from the flick after a great ball played in by Luca Dean from a short throw, which I think should count as a set piece. But the flick came from Hinchelwood. How ironic. He gets a favorable ricochet at one end for the 2-0 goal, then he provides one for what would turn out to be the game-winning goal. Maybe it's a minor issue, might be a major issue. I use a lot of sites to sort of get an average feel for player ratings. The lowest rated player on the park was Brighton captain Lewis Dunk on the occasion of his 500th game with the club. I mean, that's absolutely astounding. 500 games with a single club, but it was a nightmare for him. I mean, among the stats, 0 for 4 on aerial duels won, which is kind of his jam, but ultimately, he's anchoring a back line that concedes 4 goals in a loss. The memory of that occasion is going to sting him for a long time. And the number one big issue that defined Brighton 3, Villa 4, club or cult? I mean, what is happening here? Let's just look at the facts. With a win this Saturday, Aston Villa Football Club would be 3 points off of first place in mid-ish December. With a win, they would also have earned 30 points from 15 games, averaging exactly 2 points per game. After starting the season without a win after the first 6 all competitions, they've played 14 games. They have won 12 of them. The losses were at Liverpool and go-ahead Eagles, and that's it. Brighton came into this game flying. They hadn't lost at home. They hadn't conceded in open play for over 4 hours. They were a form team, and they had a 2-0 lead, maybe a little bit fortunate, but the Seagulls were circling for more. It would have been so easy for Villa to mentally check out and be gobbled up like little bits of fish guts on the pier. Unai Emery used several critical standout words in his post-match World Feed comments, and the first was resilience, which is the best word to describe this team and this club right now. Overcoming adversity, sticking with it. He also used the word humble. Respect your opponents. Respect how difficult it is to win in this league. Take pride in winning. Enjoy the process, but then park it and move on to the next game. Humility. The words combative, committed, competitive are suddenly commonplace. Is our team now battle-hardened? Was there something about the Champions League exit to PSG, the FA Cup semi-final loss, or the debacle at Old Trafford on the final day did those events trigger something in our group for this year, because at 2-0 down, it would have been so easy to abandon the game plan and try to go solo, and they did not. I wondered after 6 games if the players under Unai Emery for these 3 years were finally tuning him out. The same messaging week after week, our demands, our structure, our way, the same process, long video meetings, long training sessions, lots and lots of information coming in. 10 guys, a core group that's been with him since he arrived. And what it looks like now is that they've actually doubled down on the process, where they simply are not allowing themselves to deviate from the demands and the way. Guess what? That's cult-like behavior. That same post-match interview, if you watch with the sound off and study Unai Emery's facial expressions, mannerisms, and body language, you would have thought his team lost. It's almost as if he gets more intense and more focused because of this incredible base that his team has built now. And the messaging from here will be simple. What's the point of building this base if we don't just carry on and focus on the next match? I ask you again, is Unai Emery a football manager or a cult leader? Now, the Arsenal. And look at that squad valuation. I actually think they did some good business. They did the best business out of anyone. They got Eze into their team. But narrative coming out of the yin-yang, I mean, this is a battle of the 2 most informed sides in the Premier League. No offense, Manchester City. Then, of course, you have the Emi Martinez connections. Will he play? He's going to play. Unai Emery, the guy who cast Emi Martinez off, and his Arsenal past. But Aston Villa has accrued some favorable results against the Gunners over the most recent seasons. I thought Villa was clearly the better team in this fixture early last season. The difference was probably a couple of glorious Ollie Watkins chances that he missed. He wasn't 100%, of course, in that one. A year before, also in December, John McGinn scores the early winner with Arteta suspended in the stands. This game, for me, feels like a statement moment that could define both teams' seasons. It seems serendipitous and incredible to me that these 2 teams are crossing paths right now. I realize it's still early. We're 4 games away from the official midway mark of the campaign, but Arsenal have legit title ambitions, and Aston Villa has been their bogey team of late, and the core group of players I spoke about earlier have Arsenal muscle memory. This game feels seismic to me. And by the way, I don't have any stats on this, but it feels like lunchtime kickoffs, especially at Villa Park, have been favorable for us recently. This Brighton game really did epitomize the season so far. Very tough start, but resilience to carry on, strength, commitment, togetherness, and maybe tapping into past disappointment. Are we witnessing something special here? Until Arsenal, cheers, it's coffee this morning, and of course, up the mighty Villa!